So you might be one of the last people to receive a Senna, which is quite weird, really.
Jamie from McLaren was a little bit like, yes, they had promised me the car in like August last year, but then suddenly it's become like end of October a year later.
Oh man! So have they basically used that as like a traveling promo car? Is that
They did a bit of driving on it, but I have new engine, new gearbox, new everything.
Right. So they just build it as a new car. Yeah. Okay. So same chassis number, and that's about it. And so since Geneva, when it launched, and well, yours basically debuted as the first like MSO example.
Yeah.
First of all, I've never seen a car change character so much, because I saw the launch car at like Winter Ball, which was like some weird orange color, and then I saw your car at Geneva in exposed full body carbon. I was like, this car has changed so much. It looked awesome, and then you've changed it again.
Yeah.
What have you done to it?
So instead of having the full Geneva theme, because there's maybe 7 of those around.
So that's what happened. They saw your car and went, I want it like that.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
And I'm like, well, there was 2 things. I'm filming a thing for Netflix about Le Mans.
This is cool.
And they were supposed to come a few weeks ago to Monaco. And I said, the car is not going to be there.
Yeah.
So we need to delay it as much as possible. And it was supposed to be this week.
Right.
And luckily they had something, and it's become the week after next. So I wouldn't have the car if I was doing the full Geneva theme, because they need another 2 weeks to do it, and then you come here, and then you go. So in the end, it would be not possible at all. Wow. So I went for something simpler that they were able to like do it in a week.
Okay.
Well, 2 weeks in fact, and then so it's like the car that is a green carbon.
Yep, we did like a fully exposed green carbon bodied Senna here a few weeks ago.
So it's similar to that car, but mine is obviously all black.
But black. Yeah, it's nice. So basically less exposed yellow bits.
Yes.
Right. It looked good. It looked cool. Anyway, it's a shame you weren't here when it was being done, because when we quote people on Sennas, it's weird to calling them Sennas having you sat here, because we just casually refer to them as Sennas. But when we quote clients on Sennas, they're like, that is quite expensive. And as a spot of context, you take your like average car, take a GT3, for example, that we work on, it might have like 40 to 60 components, depending on how much bespoke work we do on it. A Senna has 143 individual PPF components, because the aero is so advanced. It's so crazy.
Did you put some bits on the engine exhaust flaps there on the back?
We have to keep it away from the exhaust a bit, because the amount of heat that comes from it.
But also there's like on the sides as it comes out of the side pods.
Yeah, absolutely, because there's what's been great is actually having yours in a little bit towards the end. We've learned a lot by looking at other people who've brought them back in.
Yeah.
So we had a guy who did this like super bright, it almost looks like metallic Kermit the Frog, green, and he went on this big Euro trip, brought it back in for like a check over. So we inspect it, and the impact zones that you just wouldn't believe happen on this car because of the airflow on it. It's like stones must whip around and like hit places which normal cars wouldn't do it.
Oh my God.
So we've learned quite a lot on other people's cars and basically applied it to your car. So being last isn't such a bad thing.
No, it's not. I mean, from many ways, it is not the worst thing. But in the end, you have all the extra protection behind the tires, because that's
for sure. In major impact zone. Yeah.
That's taking a beating.
So Bruno Senna, thanks for coming down.
Thank you.
I really appreciate this.
No, it's my pleasure.
Great. I mean, we've been talking about it for a while. We've sort of set the bar quite high on this show, because we wanted to get really interesting people with interesting backgrounds.
Oh, I'm leaving.
Me too. The problem with that is everyone's schedules are kind of impossible to lock down. I want to say a massive thank you, because what the audience and cameras haven't seen is you have just landed in Gatwick, driven here specifically for this, and then you're flying out again in about an hour and a half.
It's my pleasure. I wanted to see the place, of course. It's been a while since we haven't caught up, so
for sure.
This is all really a big pleasure. Congratulations for the
thanks
for the place. It's awesome. There's a few too many Ferraris just behind
here.
I think
you'll have to give your friends McLaren a nudge and see what we can do. There is a 600 LT over there.
All right. Okay.
So maybe halfway through we can get it parked. We can get it parked there for you. But we actually have done a lot of cars. We did the UK's first McLaren GT just now, all in black. That's super cool.
Did you take it for a drive?
I wish I did. I wasn't here, so I had to have someone here send us a photo. The reaction online to that car when we posted it, in fact, it was just here. And the reaction, it was all black wheels, black interior, black car. It looked amazing. From like rear 3/4 view and those super thin lights at the back. I stuck out this picture on Instagram and it got the most engagement I've had in a long time.
Really?
Which is cool.
That is cool.
It's brilliant, man. So
it's not the most sporty McLaren, it's more of like a cruiser.
I haven't driven it yet. I couldn't make the launch, which is a shame.
Yeah.
But I've been speaking with Hunter to try and arrange like a proper grand tour with it because I want to use it as it was intended rather than a short launch event. So we're going to try and make a full week of it. Maybe go up to the Alps and in the snow or something.
We were trying to do. So I did a road trip from. Well, I was in Monterey for Car Week.
Yeah.
And then I went up to San Francisco and then all the way down to San Diego.
Oh, wow.
With my girlfriend.
Yeah.
And I was gonna do it with a GT.
Yeah.
But the GTs that were there for the event, they were still prototypes, so I couldn't take
so
the
they were
cars.
like a pre-production car.
They could only do like 40 miles an hour or something.
Oh yeah, you definitely don't want to take that. It would take you like 12 hours to get there.
Well, I did anyway.
Okay.
It was the same. It was the same.
Super cool. Well, look, this is the first time that I've put out to the audience that we've got a specific guest on. Do you want to ask any questions? I'm sure you've seen some stuff so far.
It was nice to see people getting engaged.
Yeah, it's brilliant, man. But look, one of the favorite things which I discovered about you, I think when we first met, was on the ice driving event for the 570, I think we were doing ice driving event. That you're an avid drone pilot, but like really hardcore. I don't just mean like some normal DJI stuff. You build your own drones, and you like solder them, and you create your own little circuit boards, and you fly them in first-person view, right?
Yeah.
Where did that start?
Full-on nerd, I guess. No, actually the way it started was I saw this video on YouTube of some French guys flying in a forest.
Right.
And this is like years ago.
Yeah.
And their drones had like the LEDs on the back, so it looked just like pod racing from Star Wars. I'm like, I love this so much. I need this.
Yeah.
So that's when I started it.
Right.
My drones never have any LEDs, but it's like a drug. Once you like start flying with the goggles on,
so immersive.
The immersion is so addictive.
And the sense of speed as well, right?
Yeah.
I mean, but so I've actually become interested in it since you put me onto it. I think you were speaking about a guy called Johnny FPV.
Yeah.
Dude, and since then I've had like recommendations pop up since I followed this guy, and there's a whole community, a whole scene around first person flying.
Yeah.
And now that, GoPro have launched an amazing inbuilt stabilization on a drone.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I was new to this whole world, but the drones that we think of are fairly big in comparison. These are like circuit boards with a camera on.
Carbon fiber bits, yeah.
Yeah, carbon fiber bits.
They
and
are
like
very
incredible. Light. And what sort of RPM are those blades spinning up to?
I think up to 40,000 RPM. They're pretty fast.
40,000 RPM. Because they sound like a mosquito on crack.
Yeah.
They're everywhere.
They're not very like people friendly because they are noisy.
Yeah.
But actually, when you go to fly these drones, you fly through trees. You go fly like sort of like a hillside, so you can get a flow.
Yeah.
It's a very different type of flying than you do with the DJI drones.
Yes.
Now DJI actually has released an HD system for the video feed.
Yeah.
And it's incredible.
Is it?
The immersion is really.
And are you able to plug into that system, or do you have to use their platform?
No. You have to wear their own goggles.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit heavier, the system on the drone itself.
Okay.
But it's completely worth it because it's if you're racing, for sure you cannot use it because it's too heavy.
Right. Okay.
But otherwise, it's like almost the image of a GoPro in your eyes on a huge screen in your face. So it's like
you feel like you're sat on this drone.
Yeah.
It's so cool.
Makes you like much more brave to go through a tree into like the branches and the leaves, and then you get stuck. And then you have to climb the tree.
Caught up in something.
And then reality kicks in.
Yeah. It's amazing the applications I've seen of people using it in the context of film. Mm-hmm. Like it struck me that beforehand it might have started out for fun and engagement because it felt like you were flying. But the applications in film have been amazing. Yeah. Particularly when you film it going forwards and then in the edit you rewind it and it looks like you're unveiling this landscape.
Yeah.
Like that is cool. Yeah. So hopefully next year I'm going to try and get in touch with some first person guys.
You should.
And try and do something special.
You really should. There's some guys who are absolutely not, they don't care at all about losing their drones as long as they get GoPro back.
And they just send it.
And they just send it to into some places you think, this is not possible.
No way. Yeah.
And they just do it. And the drone, there's a guy, Andrew FPV.
Right, okay.
The places this guy flies his drone, you think, it's not possible. How did he even
put that through there.
Yeah, and it's incredible.
What is it with like abandoned warehouses? That seems to be a thing. It's like a format. Is it because there's no one around, or it's just complex to fly through?
It's both, actually, because the challenge of flying through like metal structures, small gaps, gives you like this, I guess, adrenaline.
Yeah.
But also, less people, which is what we try to avoid. Yeah. We're not the ones who like to film people.
For sure.
I think there's like a massive confusion for people that think about drones. Yeah. They think, it's a privacy thing. FPV people have no interest in filming people unless it's for like a video.
Sure.
Otherwise, you're just flying through nature, through buildings and stuff like this, and that's the fun.
Yeah, and I'm also picking up on a similarity between like wingsuit flying and drones. There seems to be this like proximity war. It's like who can go the closest or the tightest gap before we die.
Yeah, but it's better when the drone explodes
100%.
And you're like, okay, let's get another
build
one.
another one. Yeah.
A friend of mine, who my teammate actually, is like approaching the idea of doing wingsuit flying.
Oh, dude.
And I'm like,
you should not approach that idea.
I did tell him that. He's like, yeah, but I won't go through any holes. I'm like, sure, you start thinking this way, and then adrenaline really winds down, and then you're gonna need to do it, and then suddenly, So I'm hoping he keeps.
Which teammate or which series is this?
This is my teammate from WEC, Gustavo Menezes.
Okay, yeah.
He's half Brazilian, half American, and he's another crazy.
Brilliant. So let's talk about racing, man. Let's talk about where you've come from, where you are now. Because I haven't really spoken to you properly about the time I got to drive in an F1 car, and I phoned you up, and I was like, this is going to happen. How do I make the most of this experience? But we'll get on to that in a minute, because I've never had the time or someone else to set context of what was happening there to explain to the audience just how extreme these things are. So now we've got someone who has experience in F1 here. We'll definitely speak about that. But for you, how did it start, man? I mean, how did racing? So obviously, there's a substantial family thing happening here.
Yeah, I mean, I was into cars and stuff since before I remember anything, to be honest. Yeah. And I was in a go-kart when I was 5 years old. Yeah. So it's like I was really early into driving. But of course, when my uncle died, I was in go-karts, not actually racing, but just practicing until Ayrton died.
Yeah.
And then had a 10-year sort of gap. And then I got back into racing because I was like annoying my family.
Right.
My grandparents were not so happy.
Right.
My mother was not so happy, but she was kind of supporting me.
Sure.
And then I had a really crazy fast track career because I was actually quite old when you think about it. I started racing when I was 20 years old.
Yeah.
Max Verstappen was like 17 when he got into F1.
Yeah, which is incredible. Huh?
Which is crazy, right? When you think how young these guys are.
Wow.
So I kind of like went through the phases really fast. I started racing effectively in 2006, 5.
Yeah.
So 5 in F3, 6 in F3, then F2 or GP2 in 7 and 8. And in 2009, I almost got the Brown drive.
Right. Yeah.
Because it was still Honda, and I had a test with them. It was cool. Unfortunately, Honda pulled out, so I couldn't get into F1 then.
Right.
Would have been a pretty good car to start.
Yeah, that would have been the one, man. Never mind. Hindsight.
Anyway, so then I got into F1 in 2010. It was like a small team, so it was really difficult, tough year. And then 2011 and 12, I raced for Lotus and Williams, respectively.
Yeah.
And from then on, I had experience in the WEC, so endurance racing, 24 Hours of Le Mans. I had Formula E. I had a bunch of different endurance races around the world. It's been a really successful career considering how late I started.
Yeah, absolutely. So what would you say, first of all, has been the most enjoyable racing?
It's hard to say because each type of racing has its own sort of merit. One thing that I miss a little bit was in GP2, up to GP2, we had like Bridgestone tires in that time. And you just pushed the whole race. It was like, really attacking everything, giving everything, almost qualifying every lap. And I really love this about racing. And when I got to F1 with the Pirelli tire, you had to really nurse your tires. And this kind of like, I didn't enjoy it quite as much because it's not the same sort of like...
You just couldn't push the whole time?
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
So that's what I really enjoyed doing. Yeah. And then got into endurance racing. And suddenly you think endurance racing, you have to really nurse the car. But actually, you could just push. Now endurance racing is a full-on 24-hour sprint. You're just
so you're like 10 tenths or 9 tenths
crashing.
the whole way.
You have to like the traffic management is different.
Sure.
But in terms of actually pushing the car, you're giving everything.
It's amazing.
And it's really fun.
Yeah.
So that sort of like came back in a certain way, but I think the short races are still my favorite races. I still enjoy like the 1 hour, 2 hour races.
Yeah.
Because you're like just.
Is that because you are just absolutely on the edge of traction?
Yeah.
The whole way.
And it's like when you finish, you're like.
Yeah.
You just kind of like the adrenaline just makes you feel super like relaxed.
So, dude, I've got to listen. I need to share this now, okay? Because I mean, I've spoken to friends about it, and they're like, "What's it like to drive an F1 car?" And look, I'm not going to pretend that my ability was anywhere near enough to get the most out of a car, you know.
But you wouldn't be if you're your first time. But if
of course, yeah.
Do it enough times, you get close.
But what I found incredibly valuable before I got in the F1 car was I probably did about 30, maybe 40 laps in a Formula Renault first, right? Not that fast, but through corners, dude, like the G loads up, you know?
Yeah.
And particularly, weirdly, I felt it more through my arms than my neck.
No power steering.
No power steering. Yeah. I didn't know at the time that an F1 car had power steering. And the team, because at that time, so the reason I got this experience was Renault had bought, and it was a fully like factory supported day. Like I thought it was just some dude with an old F1 car. And I turned up and there was like 4 race transporters. And I was like, why is this happening? And it turned out that they were putting juniors through their super license.
Oh, cool.
So all these juniors were getting like seat time to qualify.
For the super license.
Yeah. And literally between their lunch break, they were like, you hop in. So as an experience, it was like almost this full F1 experience. So first of all, that was incredible. But the lessons that I took from Formula Renault were invaluable going into Formula One.
Absolutely.
Mostly in terms of the amount of trust you can have and how much grip these cars have. I mean,
even then, it's still like a big jump.
Yeah, a huge jump. But the guys were saying, so I think on the particular circuit layout that they put me on, it was a smaller circuit layout, and I think turn 5 ended up as being seen. Is it called seen?
Yeah.
That like long right-hander.
So you had like the short straight,
that
pit
weird
straight,
chicane in the middle.
Tight. Yeah. So you had a tight right-hander as the first corner.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it. And so they were like, look, we'll put you in the F1 car, but you really need to meet this criteria, this criteria, this criteria to even begin to experience it. So they were like, scene, flat. You need to go flat through scene. And I was like, okay. So I remember going through this corner, it must have taken me 30 attempts to go flat because my brain was just not allowing me because I just hadn't built up enough downforce because I wasn't going fast enough. So I'm going through and on the like second to last lap, I was like, okay, commit, go flat. And I went through. And I know I wasn't quite flat. I knew I wasn't, right?
You almost need your left foot to step on the right foot?
Absolutely. I know it in my heart of hearts. I knew I wasn't truly flat, but I was kidding myself that I was flat. And I went through it, and sure enough, the car ran wide and over the curb. And because there's so much runoff there, poor Ricard's so safe. I came back on, I came in the pits, and the guy looked at the data and he goes, you weren't flat. And I was like, damn it, you're so right. I was like, you are right. He goes, just pin it. I was like, okay. The difference that other 5 mile an hour made was night and day.
Yeah.
And that was the first time that I'd experienced downforce working and not working, right? That straight away, my jaw hit the floor and I was like, this is a different world, you know? And then when I got in the Formula One car, where Formula Renault ended was where that car began.
Yeah.
You know? But because we had like power steering, it just felt so easy.
Yeah.
You know? And it was mad. So the operating window then just went so disproportionately high that it was my neck which gave up.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Well, we spoke about the neck before, didn't we?
So as a spot of context, then I phoned up Bruno. I got invited to have this F1 drive, and I was like, I need to speak to someone because I'm never going to get this opportunity again, and I've got like 5 laps. So I phoned him up and I was like, dude, this is not a big deal for you, but I'm going to have some seat time in a Formula One car. What do?
Train your neck.
You first of all, you were like, how long have you got? I was like, 3 weeks. He was like, you're screwed. It's like, but if you could try and train your neck, that'd be good. So I did some like neck training. The number one thing that stuck in my head of what you told me was when you get in the car, they're gonna tighten up this harness and these straps, and it's gonna feel tight. ask them to do it tighter.
So that you feel like you cannot even breathe.
You can't breathe. And this stuck in my head. Of all the info you gave me, I don't know why that stuck in my head. So sure enough, on the day I'm sat in the car and this big guy comes in and he puts all his weight on and it's so tight that it feels like my chest can't expand because they've strapped me in that tight. And your voice comes into my head, he's like, go tighter. A little bit like Obi-Wan.
Go tighter.
I was like, excuse me. I was like, is there any chance we can go tighter? I'm thinking, what the hell am I doing? And he was like, yeah, sure. I was like, really? Okay. So he like straps me in. And I remember the first time I applied the brakes properly, it almost felt loose.
Exactly.
And I couldn't believe it. Like the braking performance was absolutely exceptional.
It is the most extravagant thing of an F1 car is the braking performance. Now they are doing 6G on the corners as well, which is crazy.
Which is insane.
But the thing that you really sort of never get used to in an F1 car is how late you can brake. Because even from low speed, you can still brake late because the car is so light.
Yeah.
And really, I knew that you're going to struggle with your neck because I knew you were going to do some laps in the Formula Renault before.
Yeah.
Which actually doesn't look like it, but you're still pulling 3G on the corners.
Yeah.
And your neck is not...
You're
not used to it at all.
Not at all.
So you do 40 laps like this, and suddenly your muscles are tired. And then when you get to the F1 car, you get 5G, which doesn't sound like a lot more, but actually it's huge.
My God, it is huge.
Huge.
Well, third lap.
Even accelerating, your neck gets some stress in the Formula 1 car.
The whole thing gets it, under braking, everything. It's just, I think what is very hard on TV is to convey how extreme every input is from an F1 car.
Because the drivers are used to it and everybody's really fit.
That's right,
So you see the onboard and you see a lot from the onboard,
it.
much more than the driver does actually, because the camera is up high.
Yeah.
So you see a lot more than the driver does. It feels like it's a Sunday stroll. Actually, in the car, I can guarantee it feels very different, as you know.
So what I thought would be great is on Formula One, every now and again, it would be cool to get in like a normal person and try and set some context as to how extreme different components are of driving an F1 car. So one of the things I found was it was all left foot braking, and there's a minimum amount of brake pressure, which equated to just over 50 kilograms of brake pressure on your left leg only, right? And I thought, what would that equate to in a gym session, right? So I thought, okay, in your average race, how many laps are there? Maybe like...
Oh, it's 300 kilometers, so I guess I'm going to say between 40 and 55 laps I guess, average.
And this is all on your left leg, minimum amount of pressure, 50 kgs, right? And it's not just braking a road car, in a race car, you use like this bleeding off technique, right? So you're like absolutely anchoring on to 99% of the ability of the braking of the car before it locks up. And then, and correct me if I'm wrong, but then you bleed off as the downforce is coming off the car,
as you start to steer as well.
Yeah. So, and I'm thinking, okay, there's probably 13, 14 corners on this circuit. You've got 40, 50 laps, and it's all on your left leg at 50 kilograms a corner. I thought, let's get some normal guy in, and have like...
Go to the gym.
Yeah, and have like David Coulthard be like, okay, Jack, this lap is 13 corners. How many times can you bench press 50 kilograms on your left leg?
Well, it's 50 is the minimum actually. The normal pressures we're normally doing is 120 kilos on the left leg.
Are you serious?
Yeah. The thing is, it feels much harder to do it in the garage than to do it when you're driving.
Yeah.
There's obviously, when you hit the brakes, you get pushed forward as well.
Yes.
But the calf muscle takes the whole load.
Yeah.
The calf muscle gets really the whole load. So the calf muscle can cramp sometimes when you're driving.
Yeah.
Also, the lower back takes a lot of load because your legs are sort of like, they're kind of like up a little bit. Your knees are a bit higher. And as you take the corners, your knees kind of like
Start
move.
to rock.
And a lot of drivers have problems with the lower back because
Really?
You have to like maintain your legs in the same position. If you don't, your foot comes off the throttle. Think if your body rotates.
Yeah.
As I said, the more strapped in you are, the less you have to deal with like supporting your own weight being multiplied by 3, 4, 5 times.
It's unbelievable.
And it's,
But yeah, braking, number one, blew me away.
Did you take sing flat to the F1 car?
No. No, not at all.
315
my neck
per hour?
my head would have come off my neck. I tell you what I did do is I built up enough G that I had to lean my helmet on the cowling because my neck gave up.
Yeah.
So it was enough for me to experience, but definitely one of the top 5 experiences I think I've ever had. It was just unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. The thing with the F1 car, so the Formula Renault car, if you drive it at 80%, you can still get grip from the tires because the tires, they are working on a wider range, let's say. The F1 car, definitely not. The F1 car, you need to be driving it fast. Or otherwise your grip decreases.
Yeah.
So when you get the confidence, by the time you get the confidence, your tires are not really getting there.
No.
And you have no grip. So you hit the brakes, you lock up.
Yeah,
you put on the throttle, the car is moving around. And you try to take the fast corners, you just run wide.
Just go off. They're just designed to operate at 9, 10 tenths, aren't they?
The tires are. Because if they weren't, then you would just overheat the tires very quickly.
Mate, so honestly, I really feel that there needs to be something to set context as to how unbelievable that sport is.
Well, it's from a roller coaster, isn't it?
An athlete's point of view. I mean, you'd be forgiven for thinking on TV these guys are just sat in a car. And particularly, I would imagine the majority of an F1 audience hasn't had much experience in a proper track car. So there has to be something where we can be like, let's try and set some context for these guys so that this procession all of a sudden looks like the craziest endurance on your body.
So now the thing is, the LMP1 cars, they are as fast as a Formula 2 car, or actually a bit faster than a Formula 2 car.
Wow.
But you're racing them for
24 hours.
4, 6, 10, 12, 24 hours. And I tell you one thing, our car particularly is not very fast on the straight lines.
Yeah.
It's very fast on the corners, unfortunately.
Corners.
I tell you,
great for your neck.
In Le Mans, we're pulling 3.5, 3.8 G on the Porsche curves, which are very, very fast. And after the 8 hour that you've been driving, because you divide it in 3 drivers. So you do 2, 3 hours, 2, 3 hours, 2, 3 hours, depending on how the race is going. When you come back in the race at midday of the second day, which is like about 3 hours to the end, you're tired.
I bet you are.
You are really tired, and you take those corners and think, wow, I wish I had gone to the gym a little bit more,
Really, yeah.
Even if you're still training, it's pretty tough, but
it's incredible.
I think the prototypes are getting very, very fast now.
Super fast, aren't they? But so rules or car category and WEC is about to shift, right? It's going to these hybrid hypercar sort of formula.
Yeah.
Do you know much about that yet? Because at the minute it's a little bit up in the air, but
it's a little bit in the air. The thing with the new hypercar is that there's a way for you to run a current LMP1 car in it.
Okay, interesting.
But these cars are supposed to be maybe 15 seconds a lap in Le Mans slower than the current LMP1 cars.
Okay.
And theoretically, the LMP2 cars are also lapping faster than the target lap time for the hypercars in Le Mans.
Okay.
So there's a bunch of shuffling that needs to happen for the cars to actually race in their own categories properly.
Yeah.
Which is, it's going to be a bit of a headache.
To see how it goes.
But I mean, from our perspective, if we can race some amazing road cars.
Exactly, like from a spectator's point of view, and being able to buy into, support a brand, to familiarize yourself with a brand and then something that resembles a road car is much easier to get behind than like this prototype thing with. And most prototypes now, are there any major brands involved, or are they all
Toyota
race teams?
Still is as like a proper manufacturer. Toyota is the one there. Genera has a team.
Okay.
But the thing with prototypes is that they look nothing like a road car.
Yeah.
In the US, they have something called DPI, which is a prototype. So the chassis is actually similar to an LMP2 car.
Right.
But they make their own engines, and they kind of tweak the face of the car so it looks a bit like their road cars.
Okay, cool.
So it's kind of like the best of both worlds. It's not very expensive, it's not as expensive as GTE, for instance.
For sure.
But you're racing really fast cars.
Yeah.
So probably the best compromise between spending 100 million or spending 20 and having a sort of like a 70% result of engagement from the brand.
Well, I mean, this is it. When it comes to racing, I've never come across anything that is as much of a black hole for cash as racing. It is stratospherically, it's shocking, man.
Yeah. It's very, very expensive. I think people think, how much does the car cost? And sometimes the car costs 500,000, $1 million, depending on the car. But a horse is more expensive than this. A racing horse is more expensive than this. Well, to run this car You know, a Formula 1 car costs, I think, 3,000 euros per kilometer.
Wow.
That you run.
Cool.
Sort of if you spread it through a season, you see that's why the budgets are hundreds of millions.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, isn't it? Wow, it's no wonder that the smaller teams, you see them pretty much every now and again come and go, and it's only the really big boys who have a car brand to lean on and offset the cost that like actually stays. You know.
Yeah,
it's a mad world.
When you think about a big manufacturer, they have such income.
Yeah.
That spending 500, 300 million.
For sure.
It's worth it for them, you know, especially if you're a Mercedes and you're winning everything.
Amazing.
Makes your brand,
of course it does,
very, very desirable from a customer perspective.
I guess most of it's a marketing or R&D write down as well, right?
Well, R&D a little bit further away from reality because the technologies that are in the F1 car, first, they don't want to share them in a road car at all.
This is true. Yeah.
You know, they are very secretive about what they put in the car. So that thing takes ages to even come as a concept into a car. I mean, Mercedes has the MG1.
Yes.
That has theoretically a Formula 1 engine, but that's a massive headache for them.
Yeah.
Really difficult to make a Formula 1 platform.
Yeah. Who'd have thought?
Go on the road.
Yeah. Who'd have thought it? Yeah.
Before, maybe yes, I would agree. I think the closest thing to like high-level racing that is very translatable to a road car is Formula E.
Right.
Formula E is the platform where whatever they develop on their race cars can easily go into a road car now.
Sure, yeah. I mean, what I found interesting with Formula E is that the tires as well are particular. They're almost a road tire, you know, which is...
Well, you'd say that, but they're actually really good tires.
Yeah?
You'd be surprised. We tried, the beginning, we tried to buy it's a Michelin tire that they run.
Yeah.
And we tried to buy a tire that has very similar tread.
Yes.
Even looks the same.
Yeah.
And it was
just dropped
8
off, did it?
seconds a lap slower.
Oh, night and day.
And this is like the best road tire you can buy from Michelin, not like a bespoke tire for a car.
Sure.
Just a tire that you can buy off the shelf with the same dimensions.
Amazing.
It was 8 seconds slower per lap. Completely different car.
World. Wow. Isn't that cool?
Anything from any other brand, no difference. It was the same thing.
Isn't that amazing? But it's interesting that they use the same tire as well. They don't have wets, they don't have slicks or anything. It's just same tire. Off you go. That's a fascinating sport. That is developing so fast.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It's a very cool platform. I think it's bringing. It's not necessarily so much about racing green because racing is never green. You're wasting tires. It's oil. Everything in racing wears
and
fast.
The transport of the teams around the world. That as well.
That as well. I mean, this is a difficult point because obviously planes will go and come.
Of course.
Regardless if you're in there or not, because there's other people doing it. So if you're just hopping along, it's just one of those things. But the thing with racing is that everything wears fast because you're pushing it. Yeah. But it's more about the awareness, like bringing people. Oh, it's an electric race. Okay, electric cars are cool.
Yeah.
They're not those things that
milk floats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So. Makes it much more interesting especially for young people, I guess.
Yeah. I think that's it. I think if you were raised on F1, it's very difficult to buy into Formula E.
Yeah.
Except
when you watch the races. The
racing's super close. The racing's brilliant.
Close and maybe sometimes too close.
Too close, I think. Yeah, absolutely. But in terms of the emotion, and I would say this the same for F1, never mind just Formula E, this is such a cliche comment these days, but since it went to turbocharged from the naturally aspirated era. I remember I was really fortunate enough to go to the last of the naturally aspirated Monaco Grand Prix.
Right.
And then I went the following year when it had gone turbocharged. And I was just so deflated, man, because the energy and the vibration and the sound that would come from the naturally aspirated cars, you could feel it vibrate your diaphragm, in your chest, your whole cavity, particularly because Monaco, everything's so close and compact. All the sounds would bounce off the walls.
I know.
Of course you know.
In the car, it's nuts.
Unbelievable. So there was almost a tangible connection because these cars would physically shake you, And then next time, and then I was watching from Fairmont, the hairpin. So I was quite far away from the action when you're actually on top of that roof. Yeah. Next year, I was Rascas. And if you squeeze up tight enough in Rascas, you're like on the track, And these turbocharged cars were coming past, and I was like, Hoover's going by. And I was just so disappointed. I think, what a shame.
But it's all about perspective, though, reference, because were you able to go to a Formula One race when there were V10 engines?
When I was younger, I did, yeah. And again.
And this was
next level
so
again.
much more than the V8s.
Oh God, yeah, different.
The
level.
V10s, like they had like this crazy thing. When I went the first time, it just blew my mind.
I bet, yeah.
And then the V8s, I was like, my big wish is to drive a V10 Formula One car. I never drove one.
Have you not?
And I would love to drive one just to get that thing, the V10.
So if anyone's listening, we have ourselves a handy F1 driver here who'd like to experience a V10.
Yeah.
Surely there must be someone around who's got one who wants to run one.
Well, McLaren and Williams, all the F1 teams, they have some of their V10 cars, but they don't run very often because they're obviously expensive to run.
Yeah, of course.
I was not jealous at all about Karun. He drove
I know, I saw this.
the Williams, he drove the Mercedes. I mean, this
guy.
I need to go and I don't know. I don't know if I can look like him though. I don't know. He's
a good lad.
He's got a lot of hair, so it's all good. We make fun of each other all the time. He likes the abuse. It's fine.
So have you spent much time in F1 since you left? I mean, were you doing any presenting or anything like this?
Yeah, I was doing some work for Sky for a few years. TV is not my thing so much. I think I'm not one that enjoys being really in front of the camera. So I prefer to be more kind of chill. In the car, absolutely. But it was, it's a weird thing because you know everybody for quite a while, and when you go there and you're trying to sort of get information from them, people kind of like just
What are you saying?
Yeah, I mean, they obviously know that I know more than the average person.
Of course, yeah.
So they're quite sometimes difficult to give information.
Really?
It's quite interesting.
Yeah. So we had a chat once. I think we were having an informal time somewhere, and I was like, what was the best and worst thing about F1? And I remember you saying, at the time anyway, you were like, driving the car was the best and the politics was the worst.
Yeah.
I mean, the politics in F1, most people don't see that side of it, but what was that like?
Well, the politics are not only in F1, they're in motor racing. Motor racing is sort of like a little bit of a mafia. There is not like one person who controls it, there's a few people who control it in a certain way.
Right.
And if you don't sort of like join with the right people, the odds of you actually going anywhere, no matter how skilled you are, are very low.
Really?
Very low. I mean, sometimes you kind of like lucky to get into someone's good hand and they help you up. But it's a tricky thing when there's a lot of influences on the championships, on lower championships, by bringing the guy up on the good teams, making one of the teams being a good team that year by helping out with the best equipment and so on and so forth. As you know, in motor racing, the cars are probably now, because the drivers are within 3/10 of each other. All the best drivers are within 3/10, and it's very close.
Yeah.
So if a car can give you half a second, you're winning.
It's huge. Yeah.
Right? Even if it's 4/10, you're still in front of the other guys. So really, it's a lot about the car.
Yeah.
When conditions get tricky, when you have like difficult things, then the driver makes the whole difference. But on a straight day, if you have a better car, you're more likely to win.
Right.
And that's how motor racing is kind of manipulated.
Yeah. Oh man. So that's why the big boys are still here, because they can develop the best stuff. For
sure. And if you get yourself in the right team to begin with, then you have a good one. So it makes a big difference.
So someone on Twitter asked a cool question. It was an interesting question. Is what was it like going into Formula One with the surname Senna? How is that? Was there a massive expectation on your hands? Or?
It was interesting. To begin with, it was really hard to cope with it as I started to race, because people were like literally comparing me to 3-time world champion Ayrton on my first race. On my first race, someone tried to dive on the inside of me and almost rolled over.
Seriously?
Into Hawthorne's. No, not Hawthorne's. I can't remember. The Brands Hatch is turn 3.
Yeah.
And I almost rolled, so my race was over. And they're like, "This guy cannot do anything. He's already." I'm like,
It's nothing to do with me, bro.
Well, even then, you know, I mean, what do you expect?
Even then, wow.
So it was tough in the beginning, and I kind of like completely stopped reading news about racing, you know, because it was literally just people criticizing me for not being Ayrton. I'm like, oh, this is a bit annoying, right?
Yeah, for sure.
So after a little while, you know, after I kind of got the hang of it, and I started to, you know, win races and get close to winning championships and so on, then it was becoming easier to, you know, bring sponsors because they could see potential in both on the marketing side and also on the, you know, progress side. So from that perspective, it really helped me because I was able to not be able to sell my soul to anybody and to just go to F1. I wanted to do it on a merit basis, and it, you know, it helped me to go through the ranks. I got good race teams when I was racing up the ladder in F3 and GP2, which was essential, of course. And then when you get to F1, then the pressure and the visibility kind of just explodes, right?
Exploded.
At that point, it was one of those things as well. At that point, the people who sort of make decisions, they also kind of compared me to Ayrton. So the way that people in F1 look at the drivers is not like, oh, he's beating the other guy, like the other guy is competing with him. Right. They're thinking, this guy will be world champion. That's how, kind of how they think. They don't really. It's
more longer term thoughts, is it, or
not necessarily long term? It's more like it's a bet, right? Okay. So they would like judge a driver by something special they've done once, let's say. So I don't remember who it was, but one of the young guys who had done pretty average on the previous, on like the junior series. He went and he drove like a really fast lap on like lap 3 of his Abu Dhabi test.
Right.
And then this guy got an opportunity to drive in F1.
Based on that one lap?
Based on like that. Wow. So someone with influence believed in him. Wow. Okay, I'm going to take this guy. In the end, he never really went very far. But that's kind of how F1 goes. It's a little bit of a, if you have the right person saying this guy's the one, then you get the thing. And I had a really, considering how short my career before F1 was, it was pretty good. I mean, I got to second in GP2 on my 4th year of motor racing.
That's awesome, man.
And GP2, this was against Grosjean, this was against Di Grassi, Pantano, like very, very good drivers, Maldonado.
Wow.
And it was, you know, it was pretty good. But then I had to really fight to get my test with Honda. Like, it was a massive fight. We had to like really like sort of make something happen there. And since then, I never really got a proper chance to kind of like be in someone's like, let's help you. So in a certain way, I think it was always like, well, he's not Ayrton who was like dominating everything he's done before. So therefore, let's bet on someone else.
Right.
And this is kind of how it was for me.
That's interesting, man. Do you know what's funny? I guess you would only see it every now and again. When you put a helmet on, dude, your eyes are the same. It's kind of scary. It's kind of weird, man.
We make a joke that God, when he made our faces, he just made one mold and just put our face, my whole family's faces, everybody there.
Yeah, wow. So how much overlap did you have with Ayrton when you were growing up?
He died when I was 10. So between 5 and 10 years old, I was always playing with go-karts. I mean, he's not in Brazil so much. I know exactly how he feels because I'm only in Brazil maybe twice a year.
Right.
But he really came back home for holidays and we were playing go-karts. It was more of a family fun thing than it's Ayrton, the Formula 1 driver. But at the same time, he was Ayrton, the Formula 1 driver, the champion that everybody admires. And I had this whole like awe thing with Ayrton. It was awesome.
Because from footage I've seen, he was like a Brazilian national hero, right? Like when he came back home, particularly for like a home race, you know, it was as much of a concert as it was a race.
Yeah, I mean, it was a really good era for Brazil in terms of racing because you had Emerson, you had Nelson Piquet, you had Ayrton, you know, so many world champions in such a short amount of time. It was amazing. Brazil was all about F1. And Ayrton, of course, with his character, with his charisma, and his talent, of course, he created a crazy generation of fans of motor racing. And in Brazil, man, it was crazy. People were like,
it was like woven into the culture of that country, you know.
It was one of the only countries in the world. I think might have been the only country in the world where single-seater racing, so F3, whatever that single-seaters we had in Brazil racing as a junior series, were bigger than touring cars.
Wow.
Anywhere else in the world, it was always touring cars bigger because it's a cheaper, more popular thing. Whereas single-seaters in Brazil were the thing, and everybody, the strong championships in Brazil were the single-seater championships.
Isn't that amazing? Fantastic.
It's that's how much of an influence a person can make.
But, I mean, and the way that has stood the test of time, or stood the test of time, it seems that his legacy and character with every year gets bigger, more, you know, it's just this legend which seems to have exploded, you know?
Well, when you think that everybody's exposed to social media all day long, every day, and he's not been here for 25 years, and still, you know, he's
super strong,
absolutely recognized by a lot of people, young people even. I think the thing that sort of separates him from other great sportsmen is that parents will talk about Ayrton to their kids who never even were never even born when he was racing, and people that I never expect come to me. Oh, I'm a massive fan of your uncle. I'm like, wow. How you're like you're 15 years old. How's it even possible? And amazing, I'm sure it's the parents' influence, and it's incredible for us. I mean, we have the foundation in Brazil.
That's right.
Does huge amount of work for the education that we lack so much in Brazil.
Right.
And it's fantastic that this is really the legacy that Ayrton left for Brazil, is to, you know, maybe give some people some opportunity to change the future. Hopefully.
Fantastic, man. That's brilliant. So, speaking of Senna, let's talk about this casual hypercar that you just so happen to have your family name on the side of. How did that happen? How did it come about? Well, first of all, your involvement with McLaren, because I guess, I mean, I would class you as part of their family really now. You know? How did it come about, your involvement with those guys, and then when they decided to develop this car, call it Senna? Well,
you know, I did my first race with McLaren in 2013. Was with a 12C GT3 in Spa, and since then we kind of like got closer and closer. My manager at the time was part of McLaren's. He was the chief test driver for McLaren.
Right.
And he kind of like brought me in. I knew a lot of people from McLaren, of course, because of Ayrton's history, but I never got to race with them in F1, which was, of course, a shame.
Yeah.
And since 2014, I've been doing a few races with them, but also some ambassadorial work with them. So we do events, we do some publicity stuff. And really from 2015 on, we got really kind of like, you know, we got into a thing where I will do events regularly, we'll do some car development and so on. So I had a little bit of my finger, I'm not taking any merit from the guys who are doing it on a daily basis, but we had a bit of influence on 675 LT Spider.
Mate, you nailed that.
Well, it was not me.
The team nailed that. Sorry.
Absolutely.
Yeah. When I say you, I mean McLaren.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Absolutely
I still have mine.
I know, right? Yeah, it's fantastic.
And 720S also played with a little bit. P1 GTR. That one I had a bit more time on it before the car was fully finalized. And then the McLaren Senna. Yeah. So quite a few cool cars, right?
As far as CVs go, that's distinctly above average.
So I was pretty happy. I mean, the first time I drove the McLaren P1 was at Snetterton in the wet.
Oh, just what you need.
So that was really terrifying.
Yeah,
I was much happier driving the GT3 car that day, I have to say.
Yeah.
But then in end of 2016, I went to the factory at Woking. And I went into the design studio to check out what they're doing. And I saw the concept of the McLaren Senna. I saw like this car on the clay.
Yeah.
I'm like, man, that's extreme.
Yeah, what is that?
Like, what is that thing on the back?
Yeah. You see that wing? I want that on my GT3 car. What is that thing? Yeah.
And then they told me, they gave me the brief for the car, what it was supposed to be. It kind of like just clicked in my head. I was like, man, this should be like a good opportunity,
For
right?
Sure. Yeah.
So I came to Jamie Kostorfin, he's the marketing director at McLaren, and I said, what do you think about this? And it's a serious thing. It's not something that you put lightly on, right?
That's a serious.
And he was like,
proposition.
Let's think about it.
Yeah.
Go speak to your family, because I didn't speak to my family.
Okay. Yeah.
We had this idea of making a Senna car, but we never got the right partner, we never got the right timing, and so on. And this felt really natural, like a very, very much track-focused car with McLaren.
Yeah. It's like, what more do you need?
Obviously.
Those two ingredients are enough. Yeah.
So that's when it started. So it was the end of 2016, beginning of 17. That's when we kind of like kicked it off.
Wow.
And it was very interesting. The process of like making a car with a manufacturer.
It must be fascinating.
It's fascinating. It's also very tough because there's so much legality going on.
Regulations around it.
So we really went through lots of briefings and meetings, and to keep it on the down low so people didn't get wind of it before was amazing. I didn't even believe that this
was going to happen. Yeah.
So I think it was maybe a couple of days before the Winter Bowl, then people started to get wind of the idea of, because they had to make badges and had to make these things.
Yeah.
But really, it was a very well kept secret.
It really was. It kind of, I felt like that car just came out of nowhere.
Yeah.
I remember hearing this rumor that McLaren were making this like super hardcore, like track focused car. And that's all I knew. I didn't know anything about, certainly not the name of it, And I think I remember texting you pretty soon after it was launched. I was like, man, you landed that one, bro. I was like, that is awesome. So special.
It was amazing. To make a deal, to do something that was great for everybody. The foundation benefited massively from it.
Yeah.
I think in the end, it's everybody won. And the thing that makes me the happiest about it all is that the customers have a real connection with this car. It's not the prettiest car in the world. When you see it in person, it strikes you very, very much.
Yeah, I mean, for some reason, photography doesn't do that car justice. I don't know what it is.
It's not meant to be a pretty car. It's meant to be a completely a function over form thing. But there's people who got the car and they sort of like they think, oh, it doesn't look pretty. I don't want to drive it, because they're not involved in the car. They're just like with the looks of the car, right? But the vast majority of people who bought it did customization.
Yeah.
The amount of different Sennas out there,
it's unreal.
It's amazing. I mean, if you come here and you look at all the Ferraris, the Porsches, they look kind of the same. Even the hypercars, they have like
black one, red one, whatever. Yeah.
And one guy does a really special one with the Senna. There were maybe 250 cars that were completely MSO'd.
Yeah, wow.
Which shows the commitment of someone who's buying that car.
Very much so.
And it was a really, when I speak to the customers, it was a massive emotional connection with the car.
Yeah.
From Senna perspective, but also from the car, the pleasure it gives you to drive.
Sure.
So,
I mean, that is that car's defining feature. I mean, again, we were both on the launch drive of that at Estoril. Man, the brakes again. I mean, not quite F1, but seriously, the brakes, I think the closest I've experienced was like, I went out in an R8 LMS. That was like that. It was like braking in a almost like a GT3
with
car.
Slick tires.
Yeah, with slick tires. Yeah, exactly, with slick tires. This had road tires on it. Incredible.
A friend of mine, he's a pro driver, and he got one. And the last thing he was driving was a LMP3.
Okay.
And he went to Paul Ricard, so he got a Senna. He went to Paul Ricard, and on the same configuration of a track, he went only a couple of seconds lower than an LMP3 car.
On road tires.
On road tires.
It's ridiculous.
It's really, and then he just drove back home.
Yeah.
You're like...
That's the magic of it, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
so
it's a special thing.
It's never going to be a full-on hardcore track car because, you need to make it safe for people. So if I would say, okay, we can make it faster, we can definitely make it a couple of seconds faster. Yeah. If you tune the car to the most aggressive balance.
Then it might be a bit snappy.
But it might be a little bit dangerous for someone who doesn't have the racing experience. So you always make the car, a road car, even if it's ridiculously fast on the track and it gives you amazing feel.
Yeah.
But when you get to the very limit, to 99 to 100%, then it will give you think, I can tweak it to get better. But it needs to be also, of course,
friendly enough. Yeah. I think that is the part of the development stages which might just be taken for granted when clients or whoever get in these cars. They drive them as fast as they're able to. And it's actually quite an approachable, friendly car. With that downforce, it could easily not be.
Yeah.
It could very easily be a spiky.
This was one of the things that we really worked on to make sure that the car, because when you have a big front splitter, the car becomes very, very pitch sensitive. I drove the car once when the suspension tuning was still being done, and we had a lot of rake on the car, and really the front end was incredible. But then when you hit the brakes and you like try to carry speed into a corner, the rear was really on the limit.
Right.
And this is the type of thing that you can't really have with a road car, because people come into Spa and they'll try to take Blanchimont, and as soon as they lift and turn, the splitter goes down, they're gone.
Swaps ends.
So you need to make sure that the car will sort of endure what people will do when they don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
So there's always a sort of like a margin there that takes a bit of lap time away.
That's cool.
And it's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's so much fun, that car. It's unbelievable.
I mean, you guys made my car even prettier.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Well, I'm glad you like it. We spent some time on it. As I mentioned at the beginning, complex does not do it justice, the amount of work. And then on top of that, you had some like custom tints that you wanted on the windows and things like that. So it was a big job. I mean, our cars on average will take about 5 working days. I think yours was 2 weeks.
Oh my God.
So, so it was worth it though,
It's totally worth it. Honestly,
it's absolutely worth it, yeah.
It really is worth it because, I mean, first the car, it's all carbon. So any stone chips are absolutely...
Your car particularly is like exposed carbon. So, I mean, I know Senna's are carbon anyway if you have them painted. Yeah. But your car's an exposed carbon weave, so you do not want to be chipping that at all.
No, you don't, because there's no fixing that.
There's no fixing that. No, that's expensive. Yeah, let's speak back to MSO again. We actually mentioned MSO twice there. For anyone watching who's unfamiliar about what's this word we're saying, MSO, it stands for McLaren Special Operations. And it's, what would you say, it's creating options which aren't on the options list.
Yeah, McLaren, MSO will do whatever you want them to do. I mean, they've created bespoke cars for people.
Entire cars.
Based on a McLaren, of course. They will not make a new car.
Sure, But
yeah, the sky's the limit with them. You can do pretty much what you want. And it's cool because, I mean, you see Ferraris, you see Porsches, and everyone has an option to customize their cars. MSO really does it to a very personal level, and it's awesome. Yeah,
and a super high degree as well. I mean, most people's in their options list, it's you can change the color to any color you want. Cool.
You can create a color.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but McLaren's like, build your new car if you want. If you want to build it on top of a 570 tub, then cool. Which, I mean, that is.
It'll take a little longer than the usual.
Take longer than some paint, but it's cool.
Wait a second. What about you? Where's your next McLaren then?
I'm waiting for. Do you know what? I was really close to a 600 LT, and I know we've just been banging on about how great Senna is, but sadly, unfortunately, to own one of these things, you have to part with money.
Well, yeah, I felt this.
Yeah, that red thing there's mine, and I was buying that at the same time as the Senna came along. So the F12 TDF basically took my money for a Senna, which I'm not sad about. They're in different worlds, and I do road trips in this thing. I've just come off the Targa Florio in Italy, which is amazing.
Do you have a boot in that?
I got a boot, yeah. It's a big boot. It's great. It's like a proper Grand Tourer.
There you go. So it's okay.
So I remember on the Senna launch, I drove from Estoril to Portimao, and I did the GT4, which is an amazing car. Awesome. So much fun. But before that, I had some time in a 600, and I spent a little bit of time with 600 LT on the road, and I did the Spider launch in Arizona. And that 600 LT and a 675 are the best cars that McLaren have made when it comes to value. The value as well, right? Obviously, a Senna is a completely different world in terms of performance. Yeah. But from the value proposition and the emotional engagement that I get back from it, 600 LT Spider, roof up, rear window down, is everything. Exhaust in your ear. Into the face.
I mean, you can probably just run a pipe into the car.
Absolutely, just get loads of flames into the cockpit. It's just so playful, you know. It's plenty fast enough. It lets go at very predictably. I mean, you've got those amazing whip cracks on the up and down shifts, and then at nighttime, your rear view mirror is full of blue flames because the exhaust come out of the engine bay. And as a low mileage pre-owned option, like they've taken a fairly big hit. I don't know why, because they're an amazing car. And I just think for where they are now, price-wise, the 600 LT, particularly a Spider, you know, having a carbon tub, there's no compromise in chassis dynamics.
Oh, the Spider is awesome. I was driving it in Croatia and Montenegro for an epic tour.
Yeah.
And I loved it. The only reason I couldn't go the roof open the whole time is because I was going to get burned.
Yeah, it's too hot. That's it. I would take the Spider just so I could have the rear window down. That just transforms the whole feeling. So I am actually really interested in a 600. If I could get an exceptional deal, I might do it. I've been spending some time at the Nürburgring recently, and so I've got my eye as well on a GT3 RS. So I'm like, should it be a 600? Should it be a GT3 RS? Who knows? And there will be the inevitable 765 LT at some point in time. We shall nor confirm or deny the existence of that car, but I'm just looking.
What are you talking about?
Yeah, exactly. I'm just looking at the history of McLaren and how they're going all in on the LT brand. I've just got a funny feeling that car might exist soon. And one of my all-time favorite cars is the 675 LT, which I sadly sold mine after 10,000 miles. A great car. If McLaren managed to sprinkle the same magic dust on the 700 version of that car.
Yeah. I mean, it shouldn't be really too hard, considering that the base 720 is already a
pretty substantial,
crazy fast car.
It is, yeah.
If you just put Trofeo R tires on the 720,
and some whip cracks on the exhaust,
you make the exhaust
take
more
out some
aggressive.
sound deadening, so we can hear some stones hitting the arches.
I don't like that.
You like that?
The Senna, oh my god,
it's so loud. Zero sound deadening.
With the Senna, you take the stones hitting the wood arches, like,
and you know it's carbon. It's all carbon noises getting hit by stones.
That actually drives me nuts a little bit with the Senna.
Yeah.
When you're driving it normally on a road, and you get the stone,
you can hear it hitting the thing.
You think, oh my god, what is that? What is getting damaged now?
Yeah. And the road noise from the tires is, because there's no sound deadening, is like triple what any normal 675 is loud enough from a road noise.
Oh, the Senna is a different level.
Man, I tried to do an interview. In fact, my first format of this podcast was, I had this genius, in inverted commas, idea of getting interesting people in interesting cars and driving around and doing the interview, right? And the LT's sound is so loud in there that I pulled the audio and it was just atrocious. So I canned that. And in fact, I was with Frank Stephenson.
Right.
So we were in the car that he designed, talking about his life and career in this car, and he'd never been in one. He'd never been in an LT.
Oh my God.
The guy had penned it, for God's sake. And the interview was cool, and it was called Full Chat then as well, but I was just like, this format doesn't work, the audio is terrible. So it took me 2.5 years to get back around to doing it again here.
Well, this is awesome.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Very
good
cool.
Fun. I will be into a McLaren again at some point. I might just hold off for Geneva next year to see
Cheeky.
What's happening.
No,
yeah, I think so.
They have some cool cars coming up. McLaren always has some really amazing technical achievements with their cars, and I'm very proud to be part of the family there, because really, when you think how young the brand is,
it's amazing,
and how amazing cars they are able to make. It's definitely not a car with a naturally aspirated engine that screams.
Sure.
You know, I think that's the thing that some people really kind of like miss about McLaren in terms of being a Lambo has probably a more engaging engine sound. But when you drive the cars, they're pretty special.
They drive like nothing else. I think where McLaren gets away with it more than, say, Ferrari or Lambo is that their heritage in terms of road cars, with the exception of the F1, which is so long ago and it's such a rare unicorn that I don't think it really counts, is there's no precedent of a naturally aspirated engine to go, I missed it when it was. Since the 12C, it was always a heavily turbocharged car. So you've got no expectation of going, do you remember when it used to sound like this? And they've always been how they are. Whereas when Ferrari went from Speciale to Pista, that for me, I was like, destroyingly bad.
Why?
Because I was just like, oh, all this induction noise is like just completely crushed the sound of it. And everyone goes, yeah, but it's so much faster. But I'm like, it's not like the Speciale was slow. You know what I mean? It's not like it was a slow car.
I mean, the problem is that the manufacturers, they have to turbocharge the cars now because you cannot make a natural aspirated car be compatible with a turbocharged car. There's no way around it. You need more power from a smaller, lighter engine.
That's the only way to go.
And what are you gonna do? So if you don't have the performance, you're being beaten by your rivals.
Sure. You have to go that way.
You have no way to do it. The one thing that strikes me is that the P1, for instance, has a crazy engine sound inside.
Mega.
The turbo is blowing in your ears.
Massive
like
induction noise. Yeah,
really
it's super cool.
Awesome noise.
Yeah.
And I think it's not easy to give a turbocharged car a character, like a different character if you have similar engines on every single car. So I think this is the challenge that everybody else has now to get a turbocharged engine in their car and like not make them sound exactly the same.
Yeah, McLaren have done a very good job on the LT car, on the LT range particularly. Like, you know, the whip cracks and the pops and bangs on the downshifts are super cool. But also as well, the way the world's going, you know, meeting the emissions regulations, turbocharged cars help there as well. And you know, no doubt we're going to be going smaller and hybrid and all sorts of jazz.
Hey,
so.
What's going to happen when these super pretty cars are not making any noise? What's going to happen to you, man?
Dude, I'm going to go into filming nice houses or something. I don't know. There's only so passionate I can get about something that doesn't stimulate my soul. You know what I mean? It gets back to the F1 chat we had a minute ago. You know, I mean, I was raving on about V8s and you're raving on about V10s, and no doubt, you know, our family's raving about V12s, you know? Literally, man, I've just spent 3 days in Sicily in the F12 TDF. You know, it's a high revving, naturally aspirated V12, and you got the windows down and the rocks close proximity to you, and it just resonates. It revs to 9,000 in a V12, and it just bounces off the rocks back into the cabin. I get goosebumps thinking about it. You know, it's just an amazing thing, and I think we underestimate the importance of sound when it comes to, you know, our appreciation and engagement and interaction with these things.
For sure. I think there's from my side, for instance, since I started racing, I kind of like fell out of love with road cars. Yeah, because the dynamics are so far away from a race car, right?
Yeah, has that affected your appreciation of a road car?
Absolutely, because you know, I was a crazy Porsche fan when I was younger.
Right.
You know, I drove a Porsche Turbo, and I was like, man, this is the best thing in the world. And then I drove a Porsche Turbo after driving a Formula 3 car. I was like,
oh dear, this is a belt.
That doesn't corner very well, doesn't stop very well. Just kind of like, put everything into perspective, right?
Yeah.
And now the road cars are becoming
really good.
Really good again.
Really good.
You know, the first time I drove a road car, I drove all these cars for many years. The first time I drove a road car, I was like, okay, I want one of these, was the LT.
LT, yeah.
And this is nothing to do with McLaren.
No, I completely get it.
This was just because of the experience.
100%.
So for me, personally, the dynamic of the car actually matters almost more than the sort of the drama.
Sure.
So I would say that if I were to drive an electric car, full electric car, no engine noise at all, with full torque vectoring and amazing dynamics, like low center of gravity and everything,
you'd be in.
I'll probably be in.
Interesting. Yeah.
I'll probably be absolutely in because it's the technical thing for me that kind of like drives me a little bit.
Back to the drone nerd. That's what it is. It's back to the
nerd,
drone man.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair point.
That's cool. So listen, I'm aware you're going to have to go at some point. We had some more questions about. Speaking of road cars, what's your daily? What's your weekend car? We know you have a Senna that you haven't driven yet.
Well, I have a BMW.
Do you still have that?
I still have my
series?
340i. Yeah, still going strong. My insurance company was a bit annoyed with me that I drove more miles than I had on my my insurance policy.
Yeah. So, are most of your races in Europe?
No, I mean it's.
No?
I guess it's 50-50, but.
Okay. Sometimes you'll drive there, sometimes you'll fly there.
This year particularly I drove to all the LMS races so far apart from like 2.
Right.
So, you know, you drive you go to Monza, you go to Paul Ricard, you go to Barcelona, then you put thousands of kilometers in the car.
Yeah.
But in general, I don't drive it so much because I'm not home so much.
Yeah.
And then I have the 675 LT Spider.
Yeah.
Actually, I hadn't driven that for a while. So I got an apartment in Monaco, and the garage is on the 8th floor of the parking lot.
What, up or down?
Up.
Up 8 floors.
8 floors.
I didn't even know there was a parking space in Monaco that went up 8 floors.
Yeah,
it's normally down 8 floors, isn't it?
But
and they're a nightmare.
And the LT has a very
Slow nose lift.
terrible turning circle. So it takes about 5 minutes to go up and down the garage.
Wow.
So I hadn't driven for a while, and I drove it yesterday for some filming, and I'm like, I love this thing
is
so
mega.
much.
Yeah, it's so good.
It was a beautiful day. I opened the roof, and I'm like, okay, I need to get back when driving this car.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the Senna's coming.
Yeah.
So I've been eyeing a Resto Mod C2
check you out.
Corvette.
No way.
Fully, I love the looks of old cars.
Yeah.
I hate maintaining them.
For sure.
Because they're a pain.
Yeah.
I'm sorry for whoever loves old cars. They're a pain.
Sorry,
they leak oil. They don't drive well. I'm sorry, okay? But the Resto Mod has a modern engine, disc brakes, proper suspension, air conditioning.
Yeah, imagine that.
You come in, you turn the wheel, the thing works.
It comes on, yeah.
And it looks gorgeous.
Yeah.
So I've been eyeing that, and I'm like...
That'll be cool. Around town as well, it's a nice car, that. Yeah.
If it drives well.
If it drives well.
I don't really care so much about, like, you drive and how people look at you. In fact, that kind of like...
You want the opposite?
I cannot have a really bright colored car.
No.
Both my McLarens are pretty black.
Yeah.
Mine is matte black, my LT, and the Senna is carbon.
Yeah.
The Senna has the huge wing, so there's no way you're gonna...
attention there, for sure.
But it really is about, like, I love the looks of the Corvette, man.
That's stunning, huh?
I love it. So...
Excited.
I'm eyeing that. I think at the moment I have no chance of buying it because my bank account is really not very full right now.
Okay. Is that just from having a life in Monaco, or is that from buying too many cars?
It's from buying too many cars. Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Yeah.
But no, for sure, with some time I'll go into that.
Explain to me a little bit about Monaco. They're expanding it, aren't they?
They're
building an island. They're going a little bit Dubai on us, and they're like building more of it.
Well, they cannot go inland anymore.
No.
Because France is all around it.
Yeah.
And they're expanding actually, people don't realize, but most of Monaco, where like the sort of the seaside, is already reclaimed land.
Is it?
Most of it is already reclaimed, and there's a limit of how far they can go into the sea.
Right, okay.
So I think this part is just in front of the tunnel, the F1 tunnel.
That's right, yeah.
They're building a pretty big thing. So they're building 5 villas, which I cannot even imagine how expensive they'll be. And 2 building blocks.
Right.
And the smallest apartment there is 400 square meters. I'm not sure what that is in square feet, but it's pretty big, actually.
Pretty big, yeah.
And when
particularly for Monaco, that's big.
Correct.
Yeah.
So when you think that the average price per square meter is 50,000 euros per square meter in Monaco, when you multiply that by 400,
it's
for the smallest one,
yeah, it's a substantial.
It gets pretty expensive.
Wow. 4,300. That's quite big, actually.
It is pretty big.
4,300 square feet in Monaco is basically a mansion.
Yeah, correct.
Wow, and that's the smallest one.
That's the smallest apartment. Yeah.
Apartment.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's going to be a really high-end thing. It's right on the sea.
Yeah.
You're not going to see the F1 because obviously the tunnel is covered. You're going to be like next to the tunnel. However, there is a plan which I completely opposed to.
Okay.
To make the racetrack, the F1 racetrack, go into this area.
Extend it into this new island.
Yeah. But I mean, Monaco is the only track that really hasn't changed, right?
Yeah, Monaco's Monaco.
You can't change it.
No, you got to keep it.
But there's a plan or an intention to change the racetrack. And
Seems like it's going to be a long time off. I mean,
well, this thing only gets ready in 2025, so plenty of time to consider.
There's some time. Although, I mean, it's probably been about 8 months since I last there and was there about 2 weeks ago now. They are progressing pretty swiftly. That island now has its own inland sea lake sort of thing.
Yeah, they're throwing all the stones and the sand in there and everything.
It's incredible.
And the whole thing is already with the concrete structure all around it. It's actually incredible how fast they go.
Yeah, yeah.
But that is, that's the base. Then they have to start building up.
Yeah, there's plenty of time, isn't there?
Yeah.
And so I heard an amazing stat, and this could be wrong because I heard it a while ago, but it's once the whole project's finished, it's going to add like another third onto the overall size of Monaco.
Maybe in terms of... it's too much. I would say it's too much.
Of like floor space or something, because I guess they'll be building up, right?
Yeah, it's interesting to see because they're building tall buildings there.
Tall buildings, yeah.
So a lot of people will be really mad because they're behind the tall buildings on the sea.
Of course.
Because you lose your view, of course. But they don't care, right? There's a bunch of building going on in Monaco right now.
Yeah,
Actually, living in Monaco now is like living in a renovation. It's terrible. There's a lot of dust particles in the air.
Really?
And it's, it's terrible. People be like,
terrible in a first world problem, terrible.
It is actually, you'd be surprised by how much the life quality decreases when you have massive buildings everywhere. There's literally trains everywhere around Monaco. So the traffic is terrible because the roads are all blocked.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of pollution.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't expect that, right? You're on the sea in the middle of the...
Yeah, and it feels like beautiful, crisp air.
But it's pretty... when you think that it's a very expensive place where people pay a lot of money to live there.
Want the best quality of life, yeah.
At the moment, it's a little bit of a tough time.
Yeah, I guess everyone has to hold on for the long term once the dust is literally settled.
Yeah.
So what's the plan with this Senna when it arrives? You're going to take it up to some canyon roads or?
Well, I'm definitely driving it a little bit to get it, break it in.
Break it in.
Right, let's say.
I mean, Paul Ricard from you is what, 2 hours? 2.5 hours?
Depends on how fast you drive.
Yeah, okay.
1 hour 40.
Oh, really? Okay, cool. That's totally what I meant.
No, I want to drive it on the track for sure, but I'm going to break it in first.
Yeah.
But the main idea that I have is McLaren is, sorry if I'm saying that I shouldn't be saying.
It's okay.
McLaren is definitely doing an event in Japan, like an epic drive in Japan.
Okay, that's their point. Every year they do this big trip thing, right?
So it's like 8-9 days.
Yeah, I remember they did one in New Zealand.
New Zealand, they've done it in South Africa. They do every year in a cool place.
Incredible.
And if this tour goes through Suzuka racetrack,
you got to go.
I'm sending my Senna to Japan.
That would be amazing.
I
right?
mean,
you got to do it.
I'm definitely going to do it.
Yeah.
And I think having the Monaco plates, that will be okay.
Yeah.
No
totally
speed cameras.
I drove through Japan last year. It was Gumball's 20th anniversary, and it was London to Japan. So I spent a week there driving around. It's an unbelievable place.
I go
amazing
every year to Japan for racing.
For racing, of course.
And I've been there maybe 10 times now.
How amazing are the people of Japan?
It.
Amazing.
Amazing.
Probably the most polite and welcoming nation I think I've ever.
Yeah. They are very cordial. It's an amazing culture. Like it's not being in the same planet as everywhere else.
Oh no, it's a different world, man. No, very cool. So what's next for Bruno Senna? More racing?
More racing.
Cars?
The WEC continues until Le Mans next year. So the season now sort of doesn't go from January to December. But now we have like a normal length of season, but it starts in August and it finishes in June next year.
Okay.
I'm still doing the LMS.
Yeah.
And I'm still working with McLaren on some cool projects.
Major.
So keeping busy.
Very cool.
And we're definitely keeping the air miles on the
air miles flowing. Well, next time you come in, we'll try and fly you into Heathrow instead of Gatwick because it's a bit of a trek from here. Even though it's like, Gatwick's just down the road from London, it really isn't.
No,
particularly this part of London.
For sure. I should have probably flew to Luton or something like this.
Yeah, and I see you've hired yourself a real performance piece of kit to get here.
Yeah, I mean, do you like the color?
Yeah.
It's almost like a Ferrari, right?
Coral pink, right? Fiat 500?
Yeah. You see, my girlfriend has one of these things.
Yeah.
And I don't fit on the passenger seat. It's too tall. And my head is against the roof.
Of this car?
Yeah. So I got into this car and I sat down and I was like, I don't fit in this one either. Because I thought her car had like a... So I kind of like... The seat has some really weird adjustment that the back of like this, the bottom of the seat just kind of tilts down.
Right. The front stays where it is.
Yeah, the back stays the same, but the seat just goes like this. Yeah. And now I have like maybe a centimeter on top of my head.
Perfect.
So very proud of. I came from Gatwick all the way here, and the fuel tank is still full. So
is it one of those twin air ones? I think they literally made it. I think it was like a 2-cylinder one or something. I don't know. You don't know? Not what you want really. I mean, you get back into your LT and feel like
I was able to do 70 on the motorway.
Plenty.
It's okay.
70's plenty, man.
Feels. Felt the thrill.
Yeah, mega. Well, look, we're going to have to come and do some more driving around Monaco. We got to go back to Red Rock Road.
For sure.
Again, for sure. We'll stretch the legs on the Senna, maybe.
A couple of new roads that I want to show you around.
Okay, cool. Let's do that. I'm always open for new roads.
This is
That'd be amazing.
Amazing place.
Really?
Yeah.
that I haven't found yet.
Yeah.
We have to go here.
It's near Gorges du Verdon.
Yes.
Just go up a little bit. There's a few dams there, and it's
just amazing.
Cool roads.
Okay. Well, let's try and find some time. Are you going back to Brazil for Christmas?
I'm going to Brazil for the Brazilian Grand Prix. We have a tribute happening to Ayrton.
Yeah, I heard about this. That's pretty special.
Super cool.
Amazing.
And then Brazil for holidays. But we still have Shanghai, Bahrain races this year in the WEC, plus ELMS next week.
Are you racing a lot then? Wow.
There's a bunch of races going on still. And then we're racing Brazil in the beginning of next year, in February next year.
That's cool.
Can't wait to go back racing at home.
Fabulous.
Fantastic.
Very cool. Well, look, dude, thank you so much for coming. I really, really appreciate it. I'm not joking when I've said he's flown in literally for this.
Yeah, so, it's a pleasure to hang out, and thank you for bringing me, and thank you for making my car look even better.
No, pleasure, man. Let's go drive it. Take care, dude. Cheers. Bye.
Thank you.